Welcome to the Passive Income Machine podcast, where we show you how to break free from the grind and achieve real financial freedom in 10 years or less. My name is Ryan D. Lee, and I've helped thousands turn income into cash flow, trade fake money for real assets, and take back control over their time, their wealth, and ultimately their life. Each week, you'll get strategy, tools, and mindset to build your own passive income machine. So my friends, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. All right, my friend. Welcome back to the Passive Income Machine podcast. It is your home for all things financial freedom in 10 years or less. You are on the microphone today with me, Ryan D. Lee, and today I've got a spicy topic for you. Today we're on episode 9, and we're covering financial freedom versus retirement. And my question for you is, are you playing the wrong game? Now, don't quote me on this one. I'm going to give you a statistic, and my wife always makes fun of me because I come up with statistics out of thin air, but this one was verified by ChatGPT, so it's got to be true, right? And so listen, the two most dangerous times in a person's life, think about this. When are you most likely to die, to pass away? When are you most likely to face the biggest risk of your life? Well, the first time is when you're born. Like the first year that you're born, you're more susceptible to death than almost any other time in your life. But the second most risky time in a person's life is the day that they retire. Now, I want you to consider that for just a moment, because most people are pursuing, they're running, they're chasing, they're hoping for one day to be able to retire. And I want to introduce you in this podcast to the idea of infinite games versus finite games. Listen to this. Retirement is a finite game. You play to stop. Financial freedom, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. It's an infinite game. You play to keep playing. You play to expand. The secret to real wealth isn't about reaching an endpoint and stopping. It's about building a system that lets you keep playing on your terms at higher and higher levels with more and more abundance, chasing down the greatest opportunity, the greatest pursuit of your life, which is your purpose for the rest of your life. Now, in the game, in this idea of retirement, let's go a little bit deeper into finite games versus infinite games. The finite game of retirement, in the concept of a finite game, there are known players, there are a fixed set of rules, and there's a clear end. I mean, think about things like, football or soccer or a game. There's a clear set of rules and you know when you're going to stop. In the game of retirement, it's this idea, and I don't know who chose the idea, but it's this idea that you're going to work from your early 20s to 65. And at age 65, the objective, winning, is stopping. It's walking away. You save, you defer, you delay, you hope that you have enough money to last, and you start your life after you retire. You have this bucket list, you have all of these deferred dreams, and the goal is to get there and then start living. Now, some people do this really well, some people don't. In fact, most people, when they arrive and they get closer and closer to the idea of retirement, they realize, A, they don't have enough, and all of their deferred dreams now become distant memories. They become distant dreams that they once had that they were never able to fulfill because the financial system didn't work for them. So the biggest risk that you're taking is waiting to fully live. It's waiting for one day, and it's hoping that you can win an infinite game, because in order for someone to win, that you can win a finite game, because in order for someone to win a finite game, someone else has to lose. I want you to consider that for just a moment. In order for someone to win a finite game, one that is governed by players and governed by a fixed set of rules, someone else has to lose. Now, if you're playing a game with traditional finance, I want you to consider the person that's losing, and they're not losing that bad, but the person that's losing is Wall Street, right? Wall Street wins at your expense in the game of finite games, right? I want you to consider how your retirement plan in a 401k, in an IRA, in a mutual fund, in a brokerage account is working. You are paying somebody, whether it's a person or an entity or a fund, you're paying somebody to have the privilege and the opportunity to put your money in the stock market. Let's say, for the sake of discussion, that you're paying an individual, you're paying a person, a financial advisor. Now, I'm not disparaging financial advisors. I do believe that they are good people for the most part. They're doing all that they can to help you, and they're likely following the exact same path that they're recommending to you. So it's not that they're doing anything with ill will or malintent, but I want you to consider this for just a moment. A financial advisor has no control over the markets. you have no control over the market. And so you're paying someone who has no more or less control over the market than you do to manage your financial plan. But here's how this game works in a finite game inside of traditional retirement planning. You pay a managed fee every single month or year, however it works. You pay a managed fee on the assets that you have under management. If the market goes up, benevolent financial advisor who didn't, call it or make it happen on their own, they get paid. If the market goes down because, your financial advisor didn't get you out in time or didn't have the right asset allocation or whatever, right? They get paid. Now, again, at the end of the day, he or she doesn't control the market, but they're winning upside and downside. They're winning no matter what, and they're taking a percentage or a several points right off the top. So it doesn't matter if the market's doing 7, 8, 9, 10%. You're not getting that, my friend. The financial advisor who is managing your account, giving you the fake illusion of financial, strategy, they're taking the upside of the game. So they're winning at your expense. So my friends, that's a finite game. An infinite game is the exact opposite. An infinite game has a single player. In an infinite game, the only true competitor is yourself yesterday. You're trying to become better. You're getting richer because you're getting smarter. You're increasing your financial IQ. You're using money as a tool. Now, the rules in an infinite game evolve. As your ability to solve financial problems increases, your financial IQ expands, you make more money. You get richer because you're getting smarter, and there is no end. The goal of a finite game is to get to the end and hopefully win. The goal of an infinite game is to simply keep playing and growing. You build systems. You control your cash flow. You design your life now. If there is no end, why don't you just do the thing that you should be doing anyway, which is using your money as a tool to build and live a life right now. Life is happening right now, and it gets better as you grow. Now, let's talk a little bit about how this applies to the game of achieving financial freedom. I want you to consider this. Financial freedom is a lifestyle, not a destination. Retirement is a destination. You're hoping that one day when you're 65, you'll have enough money. Financial freedom is the exact opposite. Financial freedom is governed by a very specific equation, right? It's when the income from your assets exceeds your expenses. Now, in order to make this happen, there's a lot of things you can do to navigate this. You can focus on increasing your investment IQ, invest in things that produce better tax efficient income. Remember, we talked all about this in previous podcasts with the passive income machine. You can also get way more clear on your expenses. In fact, the majority of people today are spending so much money chasing happiness through consumption because they don't know where else to find it. Look, we live in a consumer conditioned world where we believe, we're advertised, we're marketed to that when we buy the next thing, when we have the latest iPhone, when we buy the newest car, when we get the latest clothes, when we upgrade to the bigger house, we're going to find happiness. Now, you might get a little dopamine hit. I'm not going to deny that. You might get a little jolt of satisfaction from the purchase that you make, but it is very, very short-lived. In fact, most expenses you can't even remember. I mean, do me a favor, my friends. If you want to question me on this or challenge me on this, go back to your credit card statement from just a month ago. And comb through your credit card statement. Try to remember why you spent what you spent. Go back 3 months ago. Go back 1 year. Half the time, you won't even remember why you spent the money, which means the satisfaction, the joy, and the happiness that you might thought you were going to get from most of the purchases that you make isn't short. It's not long-lived, okay? So cash flow greater than expenses. You can decrease your expenses by getting extremely clear on what enough is for you, where happiness truly comes from, and understanding that you're a lot closer to financial freedom when you tap into your core values and align your money with your core values. Now, on the other side of that equation, you can increase your cash flow. You can invest in such a way where you're buying assets that produce tax-efficient streams of income. Hey, just jumping in here for 1 second, I really hope you're digging this episode and seeing massive potential for your future. But look, none of this happens without the How to Retire in 10 Years Summit. It's the financial freedom event you absolutely cannot miss this year. We're talking about step-by-step strategies for passive income, financial independence, and total control over your money in 2025. Early registration is happening right now with an exclusive bonus for acting fast. So stop waiting, click the link below, or go to retireintenyears.com, and I'll see you on the inside. Now, back to the show. Okay, as you do this, though, as you start to play this game and you increase your cash flow and level out your expenses to the perfect amount that you can spend today to give you joy, to give you satisfaction, to give you a sense of accomplishment, but not to keep you running the rat race. One of the biggest challenges with people who come into our world is they say, oh, hey, my version of financial freedom is I want to have $1 million a year in income. They've never had even $100,000 a year in income, but they think they need $1 million. My friends, you don't need $1 million of income. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, but you get there by exponentially increasing your financial IQ, not by making the finish line so far out that you never have an opportunity. So the way this game works is get very, very clear on your actual expenses that are going to give you the satisfaction that you're looking for in life. Build a system that's going to give you cash flow on a monthly basis, consistent and predictable. And when those two equal out, when you have enough cash flow coming in to equal and meet your expenses, you are free. But I want you to consider this. The game doesn't stop, right? The game doesn't stop there. The game actually begins there, right? Now, it takes on a new chapter there, because once you hit that target, your expense target, you now have some questions to ask. You now understand how to play the game of financial freedom, and you can ask yourself, do I want to play the game at a bigger level? Do I want to increase my expenses because the value and the satisfaction that I'm going to get from, going on a month-long vacation versus a week-long vacation per year is going to be worth it to go back in and do the work of increasing my cash flow? If you can justify the value that you get from increasing your expenses with the satisfaction and joy you're going to get, then you just keep playing the game. Let me invite you to consider this, okay? First and foremost, we talked about the strike number back, I can't remember in which episode, but a few episodes ago. And in the strike number, you are already 20 to 50% closer to your financial freedom target if you can eliminate taxes, right? If you eliminate taxes, the game of financial freedom becomes so much more achievable. So once you get to that target, you can start asking yourself questions. If you want to increase your expenses, then you now have to stay in integrity. Integrity is all about staying in alignment with the principle of remaining free, not getting free and then going back into servitude, but staying in alignment of increasing your cash flow first before you then go out and increase your expenses. Let me give you an example. About 7 years into our game plan, 8 years into our game plan, my wife and I decided to build a house. Now, that was a pretty big decision for us to build a house at the time. We had downsized our living expenses. We had made some pretty big decisions to keep our expenses really low. Now, we were super satisfied with what we were doing. It was very much in alignment with our goals, but we came to a point of increased opportunity and increased options. That's really what financial freedom is. It gives you the ability to say yes to more things versus no, I can't afford it. And so we decided to build a house, and we calculated how much increase in our monthly expenses it was going to be to build this new house. And then what we did is we determined how many more single family homes we would need to buy to stay ahead of the equation, to continue to be financially free. And so we sat down and we said, look, we need to buy 8 more houses to stay in integrity of increasing our expenses by this much to build the house. And once we had a target, guess what we did? We went out and we hit the target. We bought the houses, we stayed financially free, and when we stepped into the world of building our house, there was virtually zero stress. Virtually zero stress. Now, we were building the house during COVID. There was a little bit of stress with that, all the supply chain issues and the costs and all the things. But outside of that, in the financial realm, there was no stress because we were in integrity with financial freedom. We weren't stretched beyond our means. And we've done this over and over and over again inside of our lives. We've decided to increase our expenses because we wanted to travel more. We've actually increased our expenses because our kids are getting more expensive, right? As they're growing up and becoming teenagers, they cost a little bit more money. But the game of financial freedom is an infinite game. It's an infinite game. And once you understand how to manage your expenses in alignment with your goals and your values and create cash flow with your investing, it's a game that you can play at any level. You can throttle it up or you can throttle it back. Now, the way I want you to consider doing this, okay, it can seem a little bit overwhelming from the very beginning to say, I'm going to be financially free, right? If you think about this as a series of dominoes, becoming financially free in 10 years or less, it's a really big domino, right? Especially where you're starting from today. You probably don't have any cash flow coming in today. Maybe if you're already operating the passive income machine, you're already on your path towards financial freedom. But nonetheless, when you're starting out, just declaring that you're going to be financially free in 10 years or less, it sounds exciting, but it's a big domino. And if you stay focused focused on the future, you miss the power of the present moment. The next thing that you have to do is you have to come back into the present moment, and you have to get really, really clear on exactly where you're starting from. What are your resources? How can you align those resources with financial principles, as we find in the passive income machine? And how can we take the most important action? There's a book called The One Thing, and I can't remember the exact phrasing, but in the book, The One Thing, it talks about this question. If we can just ask the question of what's the one thing that I can do that would make everything else easier or even irrelevant? If you can narrow your focus to the highest impact activity that you can take, that becomes your daily present activity for the first 90 days. You should set very small, short range targets that give you the highest momentum, the highest impact when you achieve that target. Let's say your first target is, I've got to, get out of debt. I got to stop putting things on a credit card and carrying a balance month to month. You would set a target or 2 or 3 every single quarter to incrementally get yourself out of debt. Let's say your first target is you've got to increase your savings from 2% of your income to 10% of your income. You would set a target. You would monitor, you would track, you would course correct your progress until you hit that target. That would be the first domino. And the next domino that you would knock over in this sequence, in this line of dominoes, would be the next most relevant one thing action that you could take. All the game of financial freedom is understanding what success looks like, understanding how to create success, and then doing the most relevant, meaningful, impactful activity that you can do today, and staying consistently in momentum with clear, concise targets in a short period of time. That's the game, my friends. If you keep playing, if you keep compounding, the infinite game, your infinite game, is in motion. So here's what I want you to consider. If you're ready to take action on the passive income machine, step number 1 is you have to commit yourself to being able to save 10 to 20% of your income. In fact, the secret to financial freedom is really pretty easy. It's make more than you spend and invest the difference wisely. Making more than you spend gives you a delta, gives you a surplus that you have to manufacture into your personal budget and your personal spending plan to have a surplus of 10 to 20% of all you make is yours to keep. That's the money that goes into the vault. The second thing that you do is you take the money from the vault and you buy cash flowing assets, and you stay focused on this path until you hit your strike number. You don't get distracted by Bitcoin. You don't get distracted by syndications. You don't get distracted by the next best investment that your brother-in-law has for you. You stay clearly focused on your target. If you can block out all distractions and just hit target after target, knock over domino after domino, you'll arrive at this point when you've hit your strike number. And arriving at that point is the first gateway of true financial freedom. It's the first gateway of options. Money's greatest intrinsic value is to give you more freedom, to give you more options with your time and more control over your life. And when you arrive at that point in time, just like I did, you can walk away from a job. When you arrive at that point in time, you can stop working as much overtime. You can say, hey, I want to double down and I want to now increase my expenses. You get to start playing the infinite game. Don't break the flow. Don't exit the game early. Continuously play. So my friends, in this game, we talked about an infinite game versus a finite game. If you want to improve your chances of winning, stop playing finite games. Start playing the game of real winners, of real players who think in decades and act in days. They think long term and they're playing an infinite game. That's you, my friends. Become an infinite game player. Become an empire builder. Retirement, it's a game that you try to play to the end. And for most people, it ends poorly. They end as a loser inside of that game. Financial freedom is a game that you play to expand. One ends with enough. The other begins with what's possible. That's my favorite question on earth. What's possible with your life? When you can start to ask bigger questions, you start to get bigger answers. And when you're playing the infinite game, the only limitation to that game are the questions that you ask yourself. So end this podcast by asking yourself and seriously contemplating what's possible for you in the infinite game. All right, my friends, that's a wrap for today. If you're serious, though, about turning everything we talked about into your new reality, there's only one place you need to be. It's the How to Retire in 10 Years Summit. This is your chance to learn exactly how to unlock financial freedom and build passive income in 2025. Early registration is live right now with an exclusive bonus for our early action takers. Don't miss out. Head to the link in the show notes or just head on over to retireintenyears.com and I'll catch you at the summit.